Hello everyone, my name is Natalie and this is episode 3 of A Year of Writing. Today we're going to be talking about how to stay motivated and inspired throughout the writing process. This is a podcast about productivity, writing and marketing. My name is Natalie and I'm your host. A lot of us that write will at one point or another end up struggling with motivation and inspiration for writing. It might end up so bad that you don't write for a year. For me, I did not write that much for for quite a few years, and it was not fun, but I did not feel motivated. I did not feel inspired to write, and I created excuses for myself not to write, and that's why I wanted to make a podcast episode this, so that you don't end up there regretting not spending as much time writing as you could have. Some of the topics I'm going to discuss today are The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, how it helped me finding my way back to creativity and motivation. The Creative Habit by Twyla Tharp. We're going to talk about SNS, second novel syndrome, and then we're going to go through the top 10 best advice on how you can stay motivated throughout the writing process. If you ever end up feeling like you don't have the inspiration or motivation to write, then I recommend that you read The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. The Artist's Way is a 12-week program where you, from one week to another, go through different steps that will reboost your creativity, reboot you, and it will heal you somehow. I'm not sure how or why it happens, but it really worked for me. I had, after university, I don't think I told you in the first episode, I started working with communications for a few years, and during that time, I did not write as much as I would have liked to. It was not until I read The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron that I actually started finding my way back to the writing process that I wanted to have, the writing process that energizes me and that lets me be the best version of myself. It also was one of those nudging things that helped me. The Artist's Way also led me into starting to believing myself as a writer again, and I had not sent in any manuscripts to publishing houses ever, because I did not think that my books were good enough. I'm going to be talking about the fact that fear was holding me back in episode 6 of the podcast. And yeah, we'll deep dive into my fears and my demons in that episode. But what I can tell you is that The Artist's Way helped me to realize that I'm a writer, and it also helped me to have the courage to send the manuscripts to publishing houses. And I sent it to only a selected few, and one of them said yes. Isn't that crazy? If you take a leap of faith, then someone will catch you. So in Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, one of the things that I've taken with me from Julia Cameron's book is the morning pages. Every morning I sit down and I write handwritten pages, like stream of consciousness journaling. Like if something bad happened the day before, I can just pour it out on the page and let go of it. Or if there's something I'm thinking about in my manuscript, or maybe I just use it as journaling. But it's a really great way to start your day in a creative manner, and I still do it all these years after reading the book. Another great takeaway from her book is the artist's dates. So an artist's date is you going out on a date with yourself to a place where you want to go, where you feel like that has some kind of happiness or creative energy. Me, I love going to art galleries and museums, so that's some of the places that I've been, and it's a way for you to refill your creative bucket, to water your plant, because that is something that sometimes happens. We want to create, but we don't refill, we don't take in impressions from others, and if we don't do that, then we won't be able to be good artists. We won't be able to create good art. The book The Creative Habit by Twyla Tharp is a great book on how you can create a life that boosts your creative habits. One thing that people don't think, people don't really think that habit and creativity go hand in hand, but they do. Because if you have habits that will help you create a space where you can be creative and that you're usually creative, then your brain, that teaches your brain that, okay, going into creation mode. Like if you sit down and write every morning at the same place, then you teach your brain switch to creative mode as soon as you sit down that time of day. And one thing she talks about in the book is get busy copying. So take in impressions from other people, look at how they created what you want to create, and then like dissect it and do something of yourself, not copying, but get inspired by that. She also says that she has for every dance that she creates, she has a literal box where she puts down all kinds of ideas that she has around the dance. Myself, I usually use the freeform app on my MacBook or a Pinterest board where I just put everything that inspires me, what kind of, and it creates this mind map of visualization of feelings, of maybe even characters. And it's a great thing to go back to when you don't feel motivated, when you don't feel inspired. Go back to your box and see what you put there, what inspired you when you started creating it. And I'm going to read a quote from the book to you now. The novelist John George Dunn, explaining the difficulties of writing a novel. He says, because one has written other books does not mean that the next becomes any easier. Each book, in fact, is a tabula rasa. From book to book, I seem to forget how to get characters in and out of rooms. A far more difficult task than the non-writer might think. I really like this quote because it talks about the fact that just because you managed to do it before, it does not mean that it has to get any easier. Writing is hard, but it's also wonderful. And of course, it might get easier, but it also might get harder. Because when you become a better writer, you'll find new challenges when it comes to writing, I guess. And this also bridges this also bridges to the next topic, SNS, second novel syndrome. Second novel syndrome is when a writer is trying to write the second novel after the debut. According to an article in the latest number of a writing magazine called Tidningen Skriva, it's a writer's magazine in English, I would say, talked about the fact that for very successful debutantes, it might take a really long time until they publish a second novel. It, in average, takes between 7 to 10 years for successful debutantes to launch their second book. And why is that? What is SNS and why does it occur? So they interviewed a bunch of authors and stuff like that in the article, and to see why this happens. And some of the reasons might be that maybe the debut novel was written during a writer's course. Maybe you had a leap year to write and you wrote a novel, it became your debut novel, and after the year of studying, you have to go back to your normal life. Maybe you're starting a family, maybe you have to go back to your work. The point here is you don't have as much time to write as you used to have, which makes it a lot harder for someone to write their second novel, especially if you're used to having a lot of time and now you have no time at all. And that is why, like, if you're in that situation, please listen to my episode on productivity and start writing every day. I think it's one of the keys to the successful author career. Another thing may be that they feel a lot of anxiety and pressure from their publishers and their editors, from their friends and family, and from their fans. And all of a sudden, like, writing is not something you do for fun anymore. It's a job. During that switch, it might be hard to find motivation and inspiration. And how can you avoid ending up in SNS? Well, one of the things you can do is actually to start writing your second novel as soon as you can, like straight away. If you, let's say you're sending the manuscript you just finished to publishing houses now, start writing the second book straight away. Don't wait for the response. Don't wait for the book to get launched, which might take quite a long time. But if you keep on writing and keep on improving your writing and get the first draft of your second novel out, then you may be able to avoid second novel syndrome. And now for the thing you've all been waiting for, the top 10 advice on how to stay motivated and inspired throughout the writing process. And the first thing on the list is, of course, write every day. I talked a lot about this in the productivity episode. If you write every day, then you create, like, first of all, you act like the person you want to become. You want to become a successful writer. Successful writers write every day. And by acting like the person you want to become, you're taking one step closer each day that you sit down and write. Like, in the end, will make you feel more like a writer. And that in itself is very motivating and inspiring. And also by writing every day, you create a habit and a routine that, like, your brain gets into, I'm not going to say that you trick your brain, but you make it easier for your brain to find creativity each morning, each day, if you write every day. And for me, as you know, I write every day, and I roughly write around 1,000 words per hour. Number 2 on the list is to set a writing goal. Like, think about how long you want your novel to be. Let's say you want it to be 75,000 words long. If you're like me and write roughly around 1,000 words per hour, then how long would it take for you to get a first draft done? Is it possible for you to write 1,000 words per day? Or is it possible for you to write 200 words per day? Anyways, the point here is to set small goals so that you get into the creative habit of creating every day. And like, as you know, I have quite a tough goal right now, trying to write a book in just 4 months. So to be able to do that, I have to write 1,203 words per day, to be able to have time to edit it before sending it to my editor. And yeah, you get the drill. But having smaller goals that are achievable and setting deadlines and goals for yourself is a great way to stay motivated. Number 3 is join a writers group. There are a bunch of writers group. Like, you can decide if you want to have to be a part of a writers group online or in real life. I'm a part of both. So I have an online writers group that I meet every Wednesday, and when I'm in Stockholm, I have a writers group that I go out and grab a coffee with every now and then. We don't see each other as regularly as the other groups that I'm a part of. And when I'm in Amsterdam, I'm a part of a writers group that meets once a week, and we sit and write for 3 hours at a library. It's an amazing way for me to stay motivated and also to be around other people that are like me, because writing in itself can be quite lonely. But if you surround yourself with other writers, then you get a chance to discuss problems, and you get a chance to learn from others. And like, they're going through the same things that you are. If you feel unmotivated, or if you have writer's block, I can guarantee you someone else has been through that or is going through the same thing. Maybe you have imposter syndrome. Then talk about it. Because talking about it and realizing you're not alone is a great relief, and it can help you get over the hump of not being motivated. Another thing you can do, so number 4, is to switch it up. If you feel unmotivated to write on your manuscript, then, I don't know, do some research or write some backstory. Maybe it won't end up in the manuscripts, but if you know the backstory as an author, I guarantee you that the story will be better. Or why not try and write something completely different? If you write romance and chick lit, try to write a thriller or non-fiction book, just to keep writing and to mix it up, because mixing it up can actually lead to some creative and fun twists for your story. And tip number 5 is to try writing prompts. There are a bunch of great writing prompts out there. Just Google it and you will find quite a few. Writing prompts are great sometimes just to warm up your writing session. But other times, the thing that was in the prompt might end up in your story. You never know. It did for me in my dystopian manuscript. I'm like, where did the girl with the red hair come from? Oh yeah, it was from a writing prompt. Now I need to add her to the storyline. And yeah, Tip number 6 is to read other people's books. Read them, analyze them, look at how they create dialogue, how do they create suspense, what do they do at the different plot turning points in the manuscripts. How can you learn from them? One of my favorite quotes is from Stephen King in his book on writing. If you want to become a great writer, you must do 2 things above all else. read a lot and write a lot. There is no way around these two things that I am aware of. No shortcuts. If you don't have time to read, you don't have time or the skills to write. Remember that, because I'm going to talk about this in episode 5 of the podcast. The fact that why you should read as a writer. Tip number 7 is to get rid of distractions. Turn off your notifications on your phone. Don't look at social media. Don't go onto the internet on your computer unless it's for like Googling something for research. But try to minimize distractions, because if you take away the distractions, it will be a lot easier to stay on point and stay focused and motivated. Tip number 8 is to outline first. Creating an outline is one of the greatest ways for you to avoid writer's block. And if you have an outline, it will be easier for you to stay motivated and inspired as well. I know that panting your way through the first draft is a lot of fun. I used to do it myself, but outlining an amazing way for you to stay motivated, but also to, like, if you don't feel like writing the sad scene today, move on to the next one. It's a lot harder to like make excuses for yourself if you know what's gonna happen. Tip number 9 is to learn more about writing. Read books on writing, read books on story structure, on dynamic dialogue or whatever. Listen to podcasts on the subject. Watch YouTube videos, or, read blog posts. I personally think that the more I learn about writing, the more motivated and inspired I feel. And number 10, the last advice on my list is to go out on an artist date with yourself, or go out and do research. Is your character going to go to a wine bar? Well, go to the same wine bar. And maybe even do some method writing. Get into the head of your character. Become your character for a night. Just see what happens. How would they act? Who would they talk to? What would they do? This is all for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this, please subscribe to the podcast. It really means a lot. My name is Natalie. Thank you for listening.